Part 5. Overheard at the Theater. It's really quite a mystery. This theater, with the largest stage this island holds, the birthplace of so many plays, and many now deemed classic, has least to show by way of natural vista. We're even told that sites like these were chosen for their setting. It's integral to the drama. Segesta shows a pure sublime. There's nothing here to rival it, or Taormina's majesty. See, just a tiny sliver of the bay, its distant blue half lost to clumps of cypress, the tree of death, so Virgil wrote. But then I'd say these plays are guilt and death-filled first to last. So deaths are all we've come to see? It must be said the action is quite minimal. It's mostly chorus plus much commentary. On serious actions little seen whose outcomes you evaluate. If this is Greek and philosophical, I'd think we might need help with that. Well, rather as Plato once dismissed the Homeric gods, so as to affirm some higher principle of good or God beyond those poor Olympian morals, so Aeschylus evokes a holier Zeus. He tries to make existence seem more sane and tangled fates more rational. By teaching Zeus, one time decreed, man learns through suffering alone. While things this poet does with myth can be ingenious and original, the message may not convince. What messages are those? I'm sure to miss them for the spectacle and sound. To understand, and 2 millennia on, I'd need to give the Orestia storyline. Be patient if you can. It's this. The Trojan War being at its end, King Agamemnon now heads home. However, there's some guilt on him. To appease the goddess and to help the Greeks, he sacrificed a daughter. Clytemnestra, who's his wife and queen, resents this death, and having suffered a 10-year absence of her spouse, has taken a lover, though of course she hides the fact, declaring strict fidelity. So guilt's on her, as on Helen who began the war. The king himself has not been faithful, what king is, and guilt of sorts is on his mistress too. Cassandra, a prophetess and true, but whom a god, Apollo, has cursed, to never be believed for any oracle made. He took offense at her because she was unwilling to return his love. The unfortunate girl foresees that if she enters in her lover's house, she will be murdered, as he will be too. She prays the son in vain to be delivered. At palace entrance, king and queen might just be reconciled again, except it's maybe fate, there's something makes them disagree. The queen plans welcome on a tapestry, all purple, where she utters praise that's so extreme, more suited to the very gods, her husband feels that he recoils in both humility and fear. But then, reluctant still, he gives consent and enters in, though later, resting in his bath, he's murdered by the ambitious queen, abetted by her lover. This spouse, condemned by chorus members on the stage, rejoices in her evil deed, whose fatal blow she offers to the god of earth. She feels no guilt. It helps her lover's party to the crime, and he, Aegisthus, can declare it's just and even proof the gods are good, because he now sees vengeance on the death the father of the murdered king had put upon his brothers. Thus retribution, vengeance, guilt seem all combined, and likely to continue. The chorus left with little choice but to concede whoever acts must suffer. Yes, that's how it seems. Should gods and men do nothing? So far, so bad. What is the next part of the trilogy? It's all the worst fears of the queen come true. Fate intervenes when out of exile in disguise, Orestes, the king's son, makes his return. He, with a cousin, Pylades, goes to the tomb and there, both for his father and a nurse, sets down 2 locks of his own hair. Electra, his mourning sister, soon appears with bearers of libation, themselves arrived because the queen now seeks to appease the dead, due to her suffering from dreams by night. To Hermes, god of dead souls in the underworld, Electra prays for vengeance, and on seeing both the locks of hair and certain footprints in the ground, suspects at last her brother's near. This he can prove when he presents a robe his sister helped to stitch. Rejoicing at union, the pair invoke high Zeus for vengeance which Orestes now reveals is highest duty. and a need, since in an oracle even Apollo told him blood needs blood, and that ignored, more curse and sickness follows. At which the chorus calls on Zeus for justice, and is free to reveal what dream it haunts Clytemnestra in the night, though not before declaring, at some length, the madness of all women's passion. The queen dreamt that a snake would suckle at her breasts, but then draw blood, and this Orestes feels assured is forecast of the matricide he must pursue once he has entered his home and readied it for vengeance. Requesting shelter but disguised, Orestes meets his mother, telling her that he himself is dead abroad. Distress is feigned, but he's admitted and Aegisthus told. Then, with the chorus's aid, Orestes' nurse will lead the lover of the queen to where he's all alone, so that Orestes is left free to strike. He does this, and the dying screams bring Clytemnestra to Aegisthus' side. Now all is clear, mother and son are face to face, and against the queen's so desperate pleas the son is deaf, refusing mercy to fulfill quite other laws as he sees fit. Although the deed once done, both chorus and the prince rejoice. No sooner has the matricide declared his right than he falls victim to gross torments, visions and pain avenging ancient furies place on him. In agony he flees the scene. The chorus is now left to ask, can deliverance exist, or must there be another death? She, I must agree it's getting worse, and what the chorus asks makes sense. He, now comes the final episode, part 3 of this most dire trilogy. No longer Argos, now the scene is Delphi, at Apollo's shrine. Its prophetess appears, and terrified. She flees at sight of hag-like furies, fast asleep, sprawled in a circle around Orestes, still a hunted, haunted man. But soon Apollo, newly lord of earth, appears with soul guide Hermes at his side. Apollo's promise is the curse must end, but not before Orestes makes appeal to Athena in the city that she rules. As Hermes leads the matricide away, the ghost of the dead queen appears and rouses the vile furies to pursue their prey, and they, enraged to see their quarry gone, renew their curse and rail against all new gods on the earth, and Apollo, who is firm to order them away. In Athens, its own goddess will appear to declare Orestes and the Furies both must be submitted to her rule, which will include trial by a citizen's jury. Still vehement and unsubdued, the Furies rage against all thought of any process and the law which might curb warning terrors and all retribution of their kind, which is true justice, so they claim, which once denied expose even parents to all crime. But Athena and Apollo too know that the Furies rise from earth and hell and speak for earlier ages and for women. Apollo, who is witness and an advocate for the victim, now his protege, maintains Orestes did a deed once forecast by his oracle itself, made with the authority of Zeus. He also rules true parenthood belongs not to mothers whose wombs can only nurture seeds, but rather to fathers from the first. The court holds session, and the count is equal, save that Athena casts her vote, through which the haunted prince is freed, and it's agreed henceforth the city will have trials and be a seat of justice. Again the Furies rage, but seeking peace, Athena promises them a noble home within the city's bounds, to which at last, with hesitation, they agree. She. And so, despite the misery and gore, the story isn't quite a tragedy. He. How much of misery and gore could any audience hope to stand, even if, as Aristotle held, such drama gives catharsis? But for myself, I'd say there's tragedy of another kind, and hidden on another plane. She. What's that I've missed? He. In essence, there's no formula for good, nor any real redemption. She. Not even with Orestes freed? He. Well, think of it. The Furies may be loathsome, but they have a point, or almost so, because what flame is it the new gods bring to justice? Apollo was cruel to Cassandra, and to Marsyas too, his rival in music whom he skinned alive. Compassion never was his style. Orestes is quite right to plead compassion of him, and though he hear his father Zeus stand closer to true mercy, why would that father then endorse the crime of matricide Apollo gives to Orestes as an oracle? And why does that same god of prophecy and truth maintain that blood needs blood, and what, if taken as a rule, which in dramas it can be, might run to unending tolls of sacrifice and vengeance. She. It doesn't make much sense, I must agree. He, the friendlier Athena, will declare for practice of a noble mean and peace, but only for her city. All war that's made abroad to garner fame or win more land she can approve. Her stated mean is scarcely something rational, more like a shaman's trick in primitive societies, which holds the forces of the night at bay by admitting just sufficient light. It's much the same for what's approved for life within society. It's rule by men, a point on which even gods can be agreed, but it's the poor name for an alternative form of Hellenistic reason. Hence, practically, and faced with problems that the Furies pose, its change is the redeemer, its cure a lie akin to how, although Apollo claims he could not lie, the Furies, pacified, will be renamed the Kind Ones. In some, there's never exorcism, nor is there banishment or blood of final sacrifice. Like Lucifer as angelic light, the new gods, greatly idealized, could hide new rule by demons. But what is plain, the gods themselves admit it, is how even cutting bonds and granting boons, its life they do not and cannot give. In either this world or the next, no years, once lost, as lost now as they were beneath Troy's walls, can find their recompense and be restored. Those few in fields of bright Elysium are wraiths who have no body and no home, and thus the only prospect for mankind is endless nights in Hades. From Acheron's river none return, because the family of Zeus, though worshipped widely and still more appeased, don't deal in life as resurrection, and reason as a path to truth and peace is what the sages offer for this life. And then gods utter versions of the same. But it's the fact that purest reason never is entirely of the intellect, nor is it wholly male or something men alone may guard. Its thought is for this middle earth, and really, truest knowledge has a span encompassing the heaven above and hell below, the visible with the invisible. When that's ignored, the human mind is too divided, vision split, and never reaching true control, our thoughts fall prey to forces not quite understood, misnamed, misused, and so we walk to death alone in blindfolds and in ignorance. She. Well, something I now understand is why the natural scenery as a setting counts. It's like a counsel to enjoy this life as being your nearest to the worlds of gods before your brief hour of existence ends. In which case, I'm inclined to say, I'd rather sit and contemplate this world from Taormina than from here. He. But here the stage is sacred for its drama. In Taormina, Romans changed the theme. No longer tragedy, but combats of the gladiatorial kind, fights to the death as entertainment. With such the memory of its stage stained, recall that Syracuse rose faced away from Etna's height. Maybe it has more light, less curse, there's just less past to exercise. She. No curtain rises, but the play begins, all light and sound. I'm ready for this tragedy.